Gupta, who's the founder of Lakshmi. Let me give a brief introduction about Preeti. She's a financial professional and founder of Lakshmi, and India's first financial platform solely for women. She has over 2 decades of experience in the banking, financial services, and insurance industry. She is promoter and was managing director at Anand Rathi Group. Having graduated from Harvard Business School, she envisioned Lakshmi to bridge the wide gap between women and wealth. She has also been awarded Woman of the Year in the Financial Services category by Women on Top and NDTV Profit. She was also recognized for her special contribution to commodities business. What is not written in my paper is, friends, she's also a successful filmmaker. So, Preeti, over to you, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Alok. Thank you very much for that kind introduction, the generous introduction. And for everybody in Bombay Brokers Forum, I think they already know me. I've been long-standing a member and active participant, so it's always a pleasure to be here. Equally a pleasure to have my fellow panelists, some very, very accomplished women. So I'm very excited about this session. Warm welcome to all of you. Monica, Dr. Arshi, Rabia, Ms. Uma, thank you so much for joining us here. I'll begin with, I will try and do a short introduction for everybody. However, it's very difficult to do a short one for all the accomplished ladies here. Dr. Arshi Ayub Zaveri, thank you for joining us. Multiple award-winning business professional dedicated to 15 years of professional experience in active partnerships that necessitate sub-structuring of strategic initiations, economic and political management, business and financial aid, along with overall assistance for the MENA and Asia Pacific in organizations and family offices. She's completed academic credentials in public policy economics from University of Oxford and received an honorary doctorate from Mother Teresa University in international business. With the Nelson Mandela Nobel Peace Award in 2021 and Mother Teresa Memorial Award 2022 by the UAE Ministry of Presidential Awards. Presently the CEO at Trust with Trade Group UAE Abu Dhabi in the UAE, established as an independent and fully integrated international company across oil and gas, manufacturing, mining, waste management, green and renewable technology. Recently, the group has diversified by investing in neuroscience and biotechnology, which is a very, very interesting. And Dr. Arshi, I would love to have a chat with you on this. Senior investment advisor to the royal family offices in UAE, advisory and invest across Central and Southern Asia, UAE and USA. She's also the founder and CEO of Oxygenate, sustainability initiative for global climate change and renewable energy. Business mentor at the UN Women Flagship Program, NAMA Mentoring Program, of the second cohort, which is June to December 2022, on stimulating equal opportunities for women entrepreneurs. She's also the board of trustees and UAE ambassador at the World Peace Trust. Passionate about encouraging ventures of social entrepreneurship, impact investing, and women-led startups. Warm welcome to you, Dr. Arshi. We are indeed very fortunate to have you here. Next, another very, very accomplished lady, Ms. Rabia Sheikh. Rabia, thank you so much for joining us. Chief Business Officer and Principal Partner, Global Market Square Yards. She's one of the co-founders of India's largest real estate platform, Square Yards. She has spent 15 years in global real estate, covering markets such as Canada, UK, and the Middle East. Rabia has been instrumental in setting up the US vertical from scratch, building strong practices and aggressive sales culture and enabling processes. Many practices like its unique sourcing strategy, sales metrics, and incentive structures have now become some of the industry benchmarks in the UAE. She's currently working on building the PropTech platform for the Middle East, and our conversations, of course, will come back to real estate and women's participation in that financial asset. Ms. Monica Hullen. Monica is I'm a huge fan. I've told her that when we interacted. Her book, Let's Talk Money is sort of the Bible for every person who wants to start investing, simplified in a way that it's unbelievable for most of us. She's a trusted personal finance writer, speaker, and author who helps families get their money decisions right. She's the founder of Dhan Chakra Financial Education and the best-selling author of Let's Talk Money that is now available in Hindi, Marathi, and Punjabi as well. She's an adjunct professor at the National Institute of Securities Market, a SEBI-founded educational institutions, and at Banasthali Vidyapith, Rajasthan. She's the chairperson of the SEBI Advisory Committee for Investor Protection and Education Fund. She has a master's in economics from the Delhi State School of Economics and a second master's in journalism studies from College of Cardiff, University of Wales in the UK. She's worked across various media organizations in India, including Mint, The Economic Times, and the Indian Express, and was the editor at Outlook Money. Monica has public policy experience as member of the task force set up by the Government of India to put in place the Financial Redressal Agency, member on the SEBI Mutual Fund Advisory Committee from 2009 to 2021, and member on the Ministry of Finance Committee on Incentives, and advisor to the Swaroop Committee in 2009. Warm welcome, Monica. Thank you for joining us. I also have with me Ms. Uma Shanmukhi Sisla. Ms. Uma, warm welcome to you. Again, our chat when we spoke before this panel, I was hugely impressed. Ms. Uma is currently heading SBI-SG Global Securities Private Limited and is its MD and CEO since January 2022. SBI-SG is a joint venture company between the State Bank of India, India's largest bank, and Societe Generale, sixth largest bank in Europe. It is into providing custody, clearing, fund accounting, and other securities services. Uma began her career with State Bank of India as a probationary officer, and she has a wide experience now spanning 35 years in various areas of banking, branch operations, credit management, consumer banking, SME finance, international banking, investment banking, investor relations, and financial control. She also has an exposure to banks' international operations, thanks to a 2-year stint at the SBI's Frankfurt branch. She served as a whole-time director at SBI Capital Markets for a period of 2 years and was a director on the boards of group companies SBI Cap Securities and SBI Cap Ventures. Prior to holding the SBI-SG positions, she held the position of SGM Financial Controller at SBI and was primarily responsible for capital raising, investor relation, and bank-level performance monitoring, etc. I'm Preeti Rajgupta, founder of Lakshmi, which is India's first financial platform for women, and we're heading towards creating a neobank, which is the money platform, the go-to money platform for all the women in India. It's a pleasure to do this session because the cause is very, very close to my heart, and also we monitor it day in and day out. Let me lay out the background a little bit before we begin this discussion. Women today are breaking all barriers and moving towards personal and professional and financial progress and independence. But is their money working as hard? Are they actively participating in financializing all their savings and earnings? Are they really creating wealth? Today, women control over 32% of the world's wealth, according to the BCG report. According to the IIFL Wealth Hurun India list in 2022, only 55 women out of the 1,100 individuals were featured on the list. This is something to think about. Despite the fact that women make almost half the population in India, there's a huge gap between women and investing. As per the Lakshmi Women and Power Survey report that we do every year, and especially on Women's Day, 92% women said that they do not access any financial investment-related websites. And 49 to 50% women said that they were not aware of what's happening to the money that they are earning or saving. With an increase in digitization, availability of easy-to-consume information, increased awareness, and a mind shifts from traditional instruments to financial instruments like mutual funds, financial literacy is improving in the country. Incidentally, the total number of demat accounts, and I think everybody here on this platform, particularly in India, will know this, we crossed the 100 million mark for the first time in August 2022. According to the CAMPS data, the number of women investors has increased tremendously. from a 1.8 million in March 2017 to a 5.5 million in March of 2022. Having 14 million folios and assets under management of rupees 4.5 trillion. That's not a small number, but it's neither large enough to represent the segment that we are talking about. So it is clear that women are eager participants, but there is still a huge potential for women and investing in India. So we begin this session with probably laying, this is the background currently, addressing what were the bottlenecks and what is rapidly changing for women to come into this segment now. So given the huge amount of wealth that women own globally, the fact that they have all the right attributes to make good money managers, why is it more challenging for women to actively participate? I will come to Monica first. Monica, what has been your experience since you have been in this space and you have been guiding investors across men and women equally? How are women managing their money so far? We know that we've always had this little bit stashed away here and there, and things progressed as we went along. And how is the scenario changing?
Yeah, thank you, Preeti. I'll just take 2 minutes to talk about the social situation, not just in India, but I think my understanding is it is global, that women, girl children especially, are kept out of the money conversation in most families. The phrase that don't worry your pretty head about it is something I think a lot of people might have heard, that these things could be complicated. And somewhere I believe that keeping girls out of the money conversation in families has to do with the intergenerational transfer of wealth. So whereas the courts and the law can make them equal participants in inheritance, but on the ground, that doesn't really translate. So if the girl doesn't really know so much, she may not even ask for her share. So at the base of the social messaging of women being not that competent in terms of managing money, I think there's a very hard there's something much harder out there, which is that you are kept out of that intergenerational transfer of wealth because it goes down usually down the male line, whether it's her brother or her husband and then son. So I think in that context, when women are not encouraged, they don't get the confidence to start thinking and doing things around money. And that is when they're still young. And as you become older and you start your own family, traditional homemaker roles where, you are working both inside and outside the home. Your partner will help, but the sharing part may not happen that efficiently. So the one job that she gives away, which the men are happy to take, is money management. So that power also you give away because you simply overburdened with the tasks both inside and outside of the home. So we are sort of, we are programmed not to ask. And then in most situations, after you start your family, then it becomes very, very difficult because you just got too much on your plate. So let me just sort of frame this the way that I see it, but let me leave it on a positive note that once women understand the importance, and traditionally they have understood in India, which is by the whole fixation on gold, which is that at least I will do something for myself, I can wear it. But the minute women understand the importance and they seek help and they receive help, they make excellent money managers. In fact, they take over all the money chores of the house itself. So that's been my understanding, that little bit of help and they bloom.
Thank you, Monica. And before we go to sort of the global scenario, I know I've had this discussion again with Visuma, especially, you manage all the money in your household, you said, and you do it exemplarily for years now, where I think the entire family rests pretty much on you when it comes to making financial decisions. But across also your experience in the entire banking sphere that you've been, we'd love to, hear a little bit about, again, what you think has been, what led to women really shying away and how is that changing?
Yeah, thank you so much, Preeti, and my co-panelists. Uh, what I can bring to the table here is that being a banker for a long number of years, I can say that even the number of footfalls that we used to have at the bank counters, the women were very, very limited in number. And I also know we have women coming both as depositors and borrowers. And a woman is always accompanied by a man, and she would just sign, even in a case where a deposit is made in her name. She would just sign where the man shows her to sign, or a loan, wherever the man shows her to sign, she would sign. Those used to be the days. Even today, I think there are quite a few instances that I have come across as a banker where, this is a company structure where a woman family member is also a director on the board, and invariably the bank insists when there is a woman director, particularly coming from the promoter family, the bank invariably insists that the guarantee should be given by the woman director as well. And in those circumstances, there is so much discussion and there is so much resistance to make the woman director a guarantor. I mean, this is all coming from the patriarchal, tendencies that have been, ingrained in our society for so many years. But then when it comes to the investing, as we speak about it today, I personally feel, and as I have been in the financial services industry for more than, close to 38 years now, I must say that as far as India is concerned, the investing history is not longer than 3 decades. In fact, the last 3 decades is much more relevant and significant in terms of the diversity of asset classes available, the diversity of risk mitigation products available, and the advisors available, the awareness that is being passed on to the investors. So, like many spheres of life where women have been lagging behind, investing is also one area where we have lagged behind. But the fact remains that we have not lagged behind very much when it comes to investing, because the investing history itself, I would take it as not more than 30 years old. That's the post, formation of SEBI and the mutual funds. Like I remember when I started my employment with State Bank of India, all that you had is, okay, real estate, gold, and then a little bit of a chit fund. Even Unit Trust of India was the only unit investing that was available. And yes, there were maybe some non-traditional forms of investing, but the real investing in terms of direct and indirect participation in capital markets has come only with the MF industry, growing the way it has grown. So I think women have not lagged behind very much. They have just 3 decades to catch up. And the CAMS report, what it shows that in the last, since 2017 to 2022, that is the past 5 years, the growth has been 3x. So I see no reason why we cannot, be standing shoulder to shoulder with the men folk as we go forward. But I endorse what Monica ji has mentioned, that it's more about that, generational transfer of property, which is a very, very significant, and that's what I shared with you also earlier, that inheritance laws will have to be rewritten in such a way that women get their rightful share of property share. That's very, very important. So I think for now I would stop here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I think we've laid the ground on where we are on India, or at least not where we are, but where we were, and what was the social conditioning that led to, women lagging behind, and which is why we have the discussion today as emerging investor class, right? Which should not even be a point of discussion in this day and this age. I'll actually now shift a little focus to the global arena and come to Dr. RC. Dr. When we spoke, I remember you said, and Monica had sort of also alluded that globally it is an issue where women aren't really, equal, or the financial equality is lagging behind also in terms of decision making. I think when I spoke to you, there were a few eye-opening things that we discussed, and really from our perspective in this country, we'd like to take some cues from what is happening in the UAE. How do you see it? And is there something that, you know, a lot of the other countries can take a cue and learn from?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Preeti. And firstly, thank you so much to Dr. Whiskey and the entire team who has got together this incredible panel. It was wonderful listening to the fellow panelists about the situation and I think contextually putting everything together. The UAE more specifically has always been concentrated towards education, innovation, and more importantly, achieving prosperity for the people, for the citizens and the residents. From an individual standpoint, let me start by giving you a very personal example. When we enter a bank over here, any branch or any kind of unit that is in Dubai or for that matter in Abu Dhabi, you will be pleasantly surprised. It only has female employees. And that is a very pleasant sight to see as a woman, where you have so many women at the fore of the banking sector. And let me tell you, in terms of how this is being modeled, when one is offered an opportunity, it isn't because of their gender. It is because they are educated. It's meritoriously awarded to them. So if women deserve to be 70% of the workforce in the financial industry, it is what it is. And which is what is more and more compelling. I think as individuals, as investors, to be able to understand that how this country has been championing the cause of accelerating women's participation in finance. Assets under management in the UAE under female management has been of about $103 billion. And this, let me tell you, is for a country that has just 9 million people who reside. So from that, these numbers and statistics are extremely reassuring of the fact that this country is committed to advancing women's participation, not only just in finance, but also in fintech. We have to understand that financial industry today is not just restricted to the stereotypical norms of how it should be, but also to financial technologies, blockchain, and more importantly, the different payment modules that more young men and women are coming up with. So I recently met a 15-year-old girl from a university, and she particularly has come up with a solution on payments with cryptocurrency backed with fiat. So we're really seeing some really innovative concepts that come up in this part of the world. And let me tell you, from a leadership standpoint, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai, and the entire cabinet, which has 9 female ministers. And let me tell you, those ministers handle portfolios like international cooperation, education, technology, climate change, and these are some very important issues. These are some very critical portfolios. The reason why they are doing that is not because they are women, but because they deserve to be there. And that's how we must look at it. If at all the country is championing participation of female workforce, which is more than 50% in the Federal National Council, the reason is because they deserve to be there. And that's how we must look at it. Now, obviously, there will be some demographic and political conditioning that takes place in every part of the world, and the social fabric of every country is very different. But the misconception that I see, and I think most people also presume that because a person is dressing up also a certain way, their mentality is down, their mentality is affected by patriarchy. I don't think this country is affected by patriarchy today. When you come over here, you will see maximum of female participation in the financial industry, in the innovation industry, education, healthcare, advanced science. So where is that patriarchy? Patriarchy, I think it definitely affects women, but it also affects men. So we must do away with the notion that only because you choose to dress a certain way, which is culturally respectable, that does not presume that you aren't modern or you aren't intellectual, or for that matter, you don't deserve to be what you are. I've had instances where people presume that I possibly cannot speak a certain language a certain way. I possibly am not doing what I'm doing in advanced technology, in neuroscience, in fintech. So those kind of ancient and archaic thinking must go away from women who are participating in the Middle East. Conclusively, I'll mention about 2 very important things. The Hope probe, the mission to Mars, was spearheaded in a team which was 60% female space scientists, and of course by a female minister. She just happens to be female, I would say a Minister for Advanced Sciences. Finally, the nuclear power plant for renewable energy, I think also has about more than 75% female nuclear scientists. So these kind of statistics are not because we are looking at gender parity or we are looking at some sort of intelligence in the sector, but because they deserve to be so. And education has to be at the root of all of this. So I'm hoping that more and more people, families are able to adapt and really, like a fellow panelist just mentioned, that women are not at the fore of financial discussions. I think today, women over here are definitely not just at the fore of the financial discussions, but leading them. So that's something that we are particularly very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arshi. I think it's very, very inspiring for us to watch. I think as a country, I mean, women, and I think women inherently have, you know, the acumen to manage money, save money, grow money. It's really the opportunity and access to those opportunities, including the learning. And I think you're absolutely right there. I think a lot of the strong messaging to the audience here is that, one, I think we need more and more women in finance, because I think this growing segment, we also owe it to the fact that we've, you know, now there are women coming at the helm, even within our country, whether it is fund managers, whether it is advisors, whether it is even people like me who are running fintechs, where, you know, we are using a gender lens, and it helps to sort of, because you can see the problem statement a little bit more clearly and engage and encourage absolutely in the right way. So thank you for sharing that. Rabia, over to you. You know, property and investing in property it's always come to women very intrinsically, but it's a huge ticket investment, as opposed to really buying gold or now investing in financial assets. You've been in this space for some time, and how have you seen this emerging? You know, are women actively participating in this? For example, I will tell you, in India, when you have to, you know, buy a property, and typically you would take a loan, the banks will, and I think Ms. Uma will back me up on this, that, you know, you will have to get a co-guarantor with you, which is then a male, right? And there are a lot of other friction points here. So would love to pick on your experience on how is the world there changing as well, in terms of, you know, more women participating and buying houses or property.
Right. Well, thank you. I mean, a lot of, I think the real estate market in Dubai has a lot of similar viewpoints as to what Dr. Arshi had mentioned earlier. I think that it's a mindset on what the country accepts women to be or not to be, for that matter. So if you just take the real estate industry alone, which is obviously, you know, I've spent almost, you know, 20 years in the industry in various different countries. So but if I, you know, the last 8 years has been Dubai for me. And if you look at the real estate brokers alone who are, you know, in the industry, it's more than 60% of real estate brokerage are females alone. But what's interesting is that as you grow up the ladder, you know, in the real estate chain, only 3% of the property brokerage owners are female, and it's even a lesser minority in terms of the senior leadership level as well. So, you know, slowly I'm hoping that things will change, and you know, it is obviously a male-dominated industry across the globe, but it is changing, you know, rapidly, and that's what I'm finding. So if we even take the female investors in real estate alone, 38 billion was the female contribution, the women's contribution in 2021 alone. So there was a 72% growth in 2021, you know, in the real estate industry by women. So it's certainly changing. You know, as women are, you know, climbing up the corporate ladder, they're becoming more educated on investments, more financially exposed. You know, that traditional mindset of a male dominating, you know, the family finances is now slowly changing towards women having a larger role in that. And, you know, we're seeing a number of rising cases, you know, where women are making that sole decision on investing in real estate, whereas I don't think that was there, you know, if you want to say, even go back 10 years back or 20 years back. So I think a lot of, you know, I think the industry is changing very rapidly. What's interesting is that, you know, in the US, there was a study that I'd read recently that it said that if you, like basically 60%, 67% of the women are in the US are investing in various different investment classes. And out of that, it showed that the women accounts are, you know, outperforming the male accounts by 0.4%. So it was such an interesting fact because it's basically showing that women are more patient. They do more extensive due diligence before making an investment decision. You know, so because of that, their accounts are far more, you know, they're outperforming, and that too very consistently. So it's interesting to see these stats. Of course, you know, despite those, you know, us being wiser investors, I'd like to say, it's just, you know, unfortunate that as you grow up the corporate ladder, still you're not seeing so many women, you know, in those senior positions. But I think, you know, that is definitely changing. And I think that, you know, the world is going in the right direction, that's for sure, in various different regions.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I think I completely, you know, take away the point that we do, and statistically shown, a woman fund manager or a woman investor is giving you a, you know, a 50 to 100 basis point better return. And I think we've seen that statistic here as well. But even more interestingly, what we've seen is, you know, if you look at the AMFI data in India, the AUMs that women, average AUM that a woman holds is actually higher than an average AUM that a man holds, which again goes back to the same points that they're disciplined, you know, there is stickiness. I think once you've made the decision to invest, there is, you know, if you're doing SIPs, you will continuously sort of do it. Similarly, also because they are all attached, typically putting money aside is always attached to a goal. And I think most of us here firmly believe that that's probably the best way to go about putting your money into investments, you know, connected to a life goal or to a financial goal. So thank you so much for sharing that, everyone. So I think we've come to the realization there's no stopping women. Yes, we have a social conditioning. It is more challenging, but today we live in a world where there's enough exposure. There is equality otherwise on all other fronts. So even when it comes to money and, you know, households becoming smaller, I think from large Indian households, we're becoming nuclear households. The onus of taking on that, some of that responsibility, either by pull or push, does come to the woman. I think it's important for us on this panel to sort of just share or, you know, introspect or, you know, suggest how the ecosystem can really come together and help, because it is still not a smooth journey. Like we said, right? It's still, if a woman really wants to invest, then it is not something that we're taught in our formative years. It's not, it's a life skill. It's not something that you're taught in school, in you know, in higher education. It's not conversations that you're exposed to at home. But today we have the entire ecosystem here tuning in, along with all of us on the panel. Would love to hear your thoughts. Maybe we could begin with Monica again on how can the ecosystem, you know, how can we come together to enable this with even more speed?
Thank you, Preeti. And I'll just take a little bit further Dr. Arshi's point, which was just fantastic to hear the number of women in the workforce, especially in the financial sector. And I think India also resonates. Far higher number of women participate in the financial sector. But I want to make a distinction here, Preeti, of women in the workforce in finance, and do the same women in their home spaces also manage their own money. Because personally, I have seen bond traders out of Singapore, women in high finance, who actually have no idea about their personal situation when it comes to money. So you can have this double life where, like, one bond trader spoke to me saying that, you know, I'm moving millions of dollars around, and one day I realized that I don't know what's happening to my money. I think we must make this distinction that women might behave differently, and again, it'll differ, you know, country to country, situation to situation. But my understanding is that those decisions at home, and I heard an interesting anecdote to say that when there are 3 zeros, I decide. When there are 5 zeros, he decides. When it's thousands, it's my decision. But the minute it is, one, a long term, and two, a big ticket decision, that that fear of making a mistake, and the confidence of the man in the house that I know better possibly takes that decision away from her. She might be a participant if she's lucky, but in a lot of cases, they don't even know where the paperwork is. And again, I want to make a distinction here between the very well-off women who will have all these assets under management. But I think Uma will agree with me when I say that that is a very small part of the population. So disproportionately, the assets might belong, but for that 95 bulk of women who are doing the small deposits and who live an average middle class life, that story doesn't get repeated at all in terms of assets under management being under their control. So I wanted to make that distinction. And then coming to what the ecosystem must do, we must bring up our children a little differently, I feel. I believe it begins at home. I believe it begins with personal examples being set within the homes. That, of course, is very important. And to give a slightly trivial example, I think it's, the idea that a man manages money is hard-coded into the systems. So I do, of course, all the financial decisions and all the grunge work I do for my family. So when I'm doing the banking and the banks give these questions, those questions if you lose your password, so they'll give you trigger questions. And in many banks, the trigger question is, what was your spouse's maiden name? Assuming that the customer is a man and the spouse has changed her last name, right? So I think we just need to be aware that this is happening. It's not I don't get insulted by that question. I laugh and I write his maiden name because neither did he change nor did I change my last name. But I think we just need to notice these things and then change. It's not a fight.
Sure. Suma, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, the same thought was coming to my mind, that financial independence, which is the first stage of it is to go and earn money, participate in employment and earn money. But the second stage and the third stage is having the freedom to spend and invest. And these are the stages where I think women still have to, or maybe a couple of, a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, they were not so much free to spend and invest. And now slowly they are getting that freedom over a period of time, particularly when the new generation and there is more awareness and more discussion happening, more people coming, more women coming and working, and they're participating in this kind of discussions. And the advice is available, information is available, access is available because, again, you have so much, like Monica just said, that there's so much work already around you, your work, your house, and so on and so forth. If you then have to go to a bank or you have to then go to somebody else to do your investment or take your guidance, then you don't have time. But then today, these things are available digitally, online. Advice is available online, on phone. Advice is, there's so much information available on the net. And you can do the investments digitally. For example, the State Bank of India's YONO, through which, you can do a lot more things. So with all these things, I think now women are encouraged to come into. So the more you make available digital channels, the more you make available the advisor for the women. And of course, the independence is what they have to fight for. The confidence is what they have to develop for themselves. I would always talk about this RASI framework, who is responsible, who is accountable, who is consulted, and who is informed. I think that stage where responsible, accountable, consulted was men, and informed perhaps was the woman. And then, responsible, accountable man, consulted is woman. You ask your spouse, do you think we should buy that house? Do you think we should spend this much money on education of our child? Kind of a consultation, because she is now earning. And now I think is the stage for the R and A also to come into the fold of women. that they are responsible and they are accountable. But like I shared and you have mentioned that I take care of all the financial planning in the house. In fact, I have myself gone and done this certificate in financial planning to understand how to do that. If it's just moving money from savings bank to fixed deposit, I don't consult, I don't inform anybody. I just move the money. But if it's something like purchasing a house, yes, I do a discussion with my mother, my husband, my daughter, ask them, do you think? And then ultimately, of course, they all say, yours is the decision, you go ahead and do what you like to do. But the point is, bigger decisions, yes, family consultation is important. Informing them is important. Smaller decisions, maybe you can take, but who is doing that? Who is responsible and accountable? I think it should shift to women as much as it could be with men. At least a woman should do it for her own money that she makes. She should be responsible and accountable. One last word I would definitely want to tell, that when you take decisions, some decisions prove good, right? Some decisions prove wrong. And the tendency of women is to judge themselves very harshly, and they say they don't want to take wrong decisions. They want to be right all the time. Whatever they cook has to be perfect. But in investment, whatever you cook will not be perfect, because there are a lot of external factors. So you have to take it with a pinch of salt and say that some of my investment decisions can go wrong. It's okay, I can move ahead. And I think that's a very good advice that I can give to the women who are watching or who are wanting to go into taking their own investment decisions, or all your investment decisions will not be 100% right. Some will go wrong, but that is okay. You can take it that way. But I think access, like a platform like Lakshmi, is a very, very important development for women to look at for some guidance and for some ease of doing their investment activity. And such things must come to help banks and advisors should take those initiatives. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Uma. There was that was a very powerful statement there, because one of the biggest friction points, and which I think women are now crossing, and which is why they're becoming an active, participant in this field, is the fact that we are very unforgiving to ourselves. If we make a mistake, then it's very hard, and especially when it comes to money, we own up that decision, the decision to do something with a lot of difficulty. And if we, by perchance, it doesn't perform the way, or it turns out to be, you don't get the return that you get, or a mistake by chance, then you are not, you don't forgive yourself. And I think I'd just like to add one more point to what Monica, and what you said is that I think as women ourselves, I think it is very important. Women, when we get together, we talk of a lot of things, but we don't talk money. And I think that has to also change. When we get together, we need to discuss, where are you investing your money? What are you doing with your money? And I think that is one of the things that we've also got on Lakshmi, a community of women where you discuss your successes, failures, and it just becomes part of life. You understand that this will happen. Some will turn out good, but you also learn from, a peer-to-peer learning of experience. Dr. Arshi, we had this conversation, and I remember you said today the world is changing. Women are participating due to a lot of reasons, with ease or with difficulty, they are coming into the fold of financial services. And like you said, also women in finance and fintechs, these are all important tools that are also enabling them to come into the fold. But is that enough? I mean, today, for example, there are so many platforms available, right? In India today, we are at the hub, we're the epicenter of fintechs. There's so many digital platforms available. Why is it that we are still not attracting as many women? Today, if you look across and statistics again on Indian fintech platforms, you see less than 10% women on these platforms. Why is it that women are not taking, and what else can we add on to ensure that they are there, that they're making use of the fact that today that access is just on your phone, just a tab away?
Thank you, Preeti. And I cannot tell you why it is not there or what could be done, but I can tell you from experience on how it is done here. The Middle East more widely has been known to not have a lot of women working, or for that matter, in the modern workforce. I think the notion has been tremendously transformed because of education, number one, and at the same time, training, vocational training, mentorship, and more importantly, acceleration of incubators by government, private sector. So these are some of the tools that can collectively ensure that more and more young men and women are coming into the workforce and taking up professions, taking up opportunities, whether they are in fintech, whether they are in blockchain, digital currencies, for that matter, tokenization. Somebody just mentioned about how gold is an underlying commodity and the most safest investment we look at as women. But can I also tell you that I know a woman who is spearheading an initiative for tokenization on an Ethereum based blockchain backed by gold? So we are having a lot of women who are doing that. And I think the most important thing that has also been is the ease of getting into the sector and the ease of doing business. Remember, if you really want to have massive investments into this sector, you must first understand this. And you must be in a country that also allows this disruption, because you cannot really do it if the government or the private sector is stifling your progress. So, in the UAE, more specifically, as I have seen, women who are wanting to invest, you can call it in the traditional sectors the able to fellow panelists just mentioned, in terms of stocks, in terms of mutual funds, basic banking deposits. That part has been, I think, long gone here. The largest portfolios in the banking sector in terms of investments are held by Marathi women. Just for the sector and for the knowledge of everybody here, that it is by Emirati women. And I think they have now gone past that, and they are investing into advanced technology, into fintech, and really getting into sectors that are the present and the future. There is massive disruption happening in the financial industry with the advent of metaverse. And we are actually at the GITEX. I was speaking at GITEX a couple of hours ago, and we're talking about how investments, and for that matter, wealth in the female participation on this part of the world has been witnessing such a huge rise. I think one of the key has been that the government has been equally encouraging. The private sector is developing programs that is promoting more and more women. Women on boards are a mandate by the UAE government in terms of participation. We need minimum one female board member, maximum as per I'm of the opinion that you may have maximum members who are female meritoriously, not because of their gender, but because they deserve to be there. And I think from a more from a holistic standpoint, the way we can really accelerate and replicate this in different countries, not just by the way of India, but also different nations, further Middle East and the MENA region for that matter, is that we can learn from each other. We can learn from small changes. Like Monica mentioned, you can actually observe these little things and you can make those changes, because it is the little things that really drive change. It's not the massive things. We cannot really anticipate the outcome of our financial policy. Even if you have women curating it, we cannot anticipate the outcome. We can only make these little changes that sort of don't make you feel that, because you're a woman, you are undergoing this. No, that's not the truth. We need to have these changes done industry-wise, and it is an amalgamation of government and private sector. Individually, I think families must not, there's something that families must not do, is to keep women out of conversations that are essential. They should be at the fore of every conversation, at the fulcrum of every conversation, whether it's investment, whether it's any kind of diversification. And we need to ensure that our young girls, our children, our sisters, our mothers, also every female in our peer group is equally updated, informed, and more importantly, encouraged. I think there's a lot of opportunity, and you need to constantly encourage people. Just an hour ago, a very able professor from the NYU Abu Dhabi mentioned to me that they are talking about research in robotics and fintech, but are actually looking at different mediums or how to invest their personal wealth. Like Monica mentioned, that you may be doing what you're doing, but you're really looking for those able methods of diversifying your personal wealth. So one must be cognizant, one must be open, and one must have open forums such as yours to discuss how you are investing, to discuss what are the main avenues of returns, and how can we do traditional as well as modern investment, like real estate, stocks, digital currency, private equity. We need to have a far more balanced portfolio and not just put everything in one thing. I think, and those are the kind of conversations that will really move the needle. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think, the reason that I started building Lakshmi is obviously this huge optimism, not just, not coming from the gut, but really for also from seeing all the changes that are happening in India as well. I think in terms of the digitization, in terms of also government support, I think in terms of what fintechs are building, there is a huge euphoria, and I feel very, very optimistic about next year. Hopefully we will not have a session which is the women, the emerging segment, but really women the the overarching or the large segment that have entered into this market. My question actually was a little bit around, and I was trying to sort of hint whether the tools are all available. Yes, we will do a lot on what we need to on within our home, socio-economic, I think education, part of making it a life skill, etc. There is still that little gap. Some women, like I said, have crossed over that gap and, come to this side. But again, I'm a part of a lot of platforms where there's a lot of talk of saying, do you need sort of a gender lens to be used when you're building fintech or financial products, whether it be banking, insurance, property tech. I know that when we built Lakshmi, I think we focused a lot. We built it on pillars of, the fact that it's digital, the fact that there's a community, the fact that there's learning and informed decision making. So you sort of take away that fear. And finally, also the fact that it's time efficient. That's one platform you go to where you try and you do all things money. But my question actually to you, Rabia, would be that is there, the need or what does it take to create a slightly more, or do women need a more customized solution? Do we need that gender lens when it comes to attracting them onto platforms or to even financial service providers when they, advisors go out, or when, wealth managers go out? Why is it that women are able to actually speak and engage with women better? Is there a need, and do you feel that digitally also that can be achieved?
So I think that, there's nothing that ever stops a woman from moving forward and using these platforms. So I don't know if there's anything that we require to encourage a woman, to get onto these platforms any more than a male does. But what I do feel is that it's the mindset of a woman and how much she is willing to move forward and take the initiative, in onboarding herself onto these platforms, or making those decisions, or having a larger role in in contributing to those financial investments. I think that although we talk a lot about the previous, how the culture has always been that women are not basically being put on the forefront because either the husbands or their counterparts, they would maybe feel that they should be the decision makers. But I think a lot of it also is that women being in that comfort zone. I don't know if comfort zone would be the right word, but more so they've been accustomed, or they've adjusted to that. Okay, my husband will take that that decision, or my father or whoever it may be, will take that decision, rather than them actually taking the initiative and saying, what, I want to be a part of this, having that involvement more so. So just from a real estate perspective, what I've found is that a lot of our clients, yes, of course, a lot of them are male, but what a lot of them don't take the decisions unless, that they say that, no, I'd have to consult with my wife, or I'd have to speak with her first. And, it's great to hear that. But one thing I'd like to see a lot more is that women being at the forefront with their husband, rather than the husband taking the first meeting, or the father taking the first meeting and saying, I'll have to consult with my daughter or my wife or whatever. So I feel that women should be there even from the first meeting or the first get-go, wanting to participate, wanting to be more involved. And I think a lot of that has to do with women, that mindset changing from the women's perspective, that I deserve to have that say. I'm equally, I have a role to play in this decision. So it's a lot of, I think a big part of it also has to be the women, taking that decision. And I think we shouldn't shy away from highlighting that either.
So actually a quick question, Rabia, when you reach out, when you're targeting customers, is there anything different that you do to reach out? Is there a difference in messaging when you try and reach out to women customers, because they are becoming the new age homeowners? Is there anything that is done differently as part of strategy or as part of messaging?
So unfortunately, in our industry, it's very difficult to target a female versus a male because it's done as per the leads that come through our digital platform. So if obviously it's a female or a male, so actually, believe it or not, my agents and my team, they almost prefer to deal with the female versus the male, and the reason why is because they know ultimately the decision lies with the female, because that the father or the husband would not take the decision until they know that they have that the women say so. So in our industry, it's a little bit tougher, but what I can say is that whenever they do that phone call, and if it's a male answering, they will always say, are you the decision maker? Would you like us to do the meeting with your wife as well, or with your daughter, or whatever it may be? So they definitely ask that question, because now the market is moving in such a way, or the world is moving in such a way, that they know that the women are 50% or if not more of a decision maker in making that investment versus the male. So it's definitely moving in that direction, and now and they're all, our team is definitely adjusting to that.
Thank you for sharing that. I think we are almost out of time. Dr. Archie had to leave, she sent us a message, but last thoughts on this topic, Monica, from you. Women, emerging women customers, is it something that the industry needs to wake up to? And how do you see this panning out?
So the industry, I think, understands the huge market out there. I think it's a lot also to do about women having the confidence to take this step. And one thing that I tell all of the conversations I do with groups of women is that if you can manage the extended family efficiently, you can more than manage your financial life. That is a complicated story. It's a very complicated thing to do. So you can do very complicated things. Finance actually is very simple. So if you can do that, this is a piece of cake.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Suma from.
Yeah, I fully agree. There's one, I would definitely look at all the financial advisors as well as banks and the other financial service providers to provide, digital solutions and make things easier and simpler for women. Maybe special products like State Bank of India comes out with this home loan where women get a lower rate of interest, which means an asset gets created in the name of the woman. And I think many banks have such schemes. There should be some, even the wealth managers, I think, should look at specific customized solutions for women, see what they would require, what kind of a balanced solutions they require. And I would certainly give a piece of advice to all the women who are watching. Gold is investment, jewelry is not. So please invest in SGBs or e-gold or whatever, but stay very, very cautious when it comes to jewelry. That's not investment. That's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Fantastic. I think our women on Lakshmi, by the way, love SGB. I think it's one of the first products that they actually get into, and we are glad that we're moving them from physical gold to actually a product which is, so it's either SGB or gold mutual fund. So very proud of that. Thank you for sharing that. Rabia, from you, any words of advice or anything as a last thought that you'd want to leave on this platform?
More so just saying that, as Dr. Archie earlier mentioned as well, it's just about hoping that women have that confidence to really step forward and take that, advancement in the world. I feel that we can contribute so much to the working world, to the financial investments, and to the household investments that we have. I feel that we could be such great contributors, but sometimes I just feel that that lack of confidence or that lack of encouragement may be there. And I really hope that women take that step forward and, really take it to the next level, because we have that ability to do so.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all the panelists for joining us. My little request to BFF is that the next time we have this panel, let's have men on the panel as well, because I think they need to become part of the conversation and probably, have the right otherwise we are just women on the panel when we are talking about women. So we need men to come in as well. Thank you so much, Ms. Uma. Monica, Rabia, thank you so much for joining us and giving your time. It's been a wonderful conversation, something that we could continue for a very, very long time. A lot more to be discussed, debated, but time is the limitation. Thank you so much once again. Have a great evening. And everybody watching, thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Preeti. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And Preeti noted your suggestion for next year.